2 sessions that are more like they used to be, because Dr. Light's not here. So we're going to revert to our old format of the meditation first for about 30 minutes, and then we'll have a break with snacks, and then we'll have a discussion about the book that we've all been reading. So, if you're ready to meditate, sit up straight and relax. This is going to be more of a body scan, sort of what Dr. Lai has done, but it's based on the chapter on right karma and the meditation that follows that chapter. So, get comfortable, get situated, move around until you feel pretty stable. And if you choose to close your eyes, that's fine. If you choose to leave them sort of half open, that's fine too. But begin to think about your body. And I think very few of us have asked this question. But how do you know you have a body? How do you find how your body sits in space? If you're sitting on a cushion, there's nothing at your back. So how do you know your back is there? It's an interesting question. But to help us understand how our body is in space, think about your spine and sit as straight as you can, but still remaining comfortable. You don't want to be rigid with it. It needs to be a relaxed, straight spine. And press your body into the cushion or the chair. And when you do that, your small of your back forms a small arch. And it's kind of a spring that helps you balance and stay upright and at the same time relaxed. And if we're conscious of that little indentation and try to keep it in place, then it's much easier to sit up straight for a longer period of time. So let your mind travel up from the small of your back, up your spine, and up into your neck. And see if you can detect any tension in your neck. I think most of us carry tension in our neck and shoulders. But if you find tension in your neck, see if you can just let it go. And pay attention to your shoulders. There's a feeling there. It may be relaxation, a soothing sense, or it may be more tension. Whatever you find, just allow it to relax. You don't need to tell it to relax. Allow it to relax. Ask it if it's willing to relax. Often the answer will be yes. Follow your inhale up along your neck into the crown of your head. And sense what you're feeling around your skull, just below the skin surface. Notice your temples, and notice if you feel any tension there. Often there is. And allow your mind to follow down the front of your throat, down into your chest, along your sternum, and into your stomach. And become aware that you're breathing. And notice what happens in your body as you breathe. Does your stomach expand? Do your lungs expand? In this exercise, allow the breath to lead your mind, which is a different idea. But follow the breath as it comes into your body, down to your abdomen, where it pauses, and then resumes the in-breath. And just allow your mind to follow closely behind that sensation of breathing. That in itself will allow more relaxation. If you just allow the mind to follow the breath, rather than telling your mind to pay attention to the breath. Just leave it to its own devices. And if left to its own devices, it might go off in left field. But that's okay. Just find yourself feeling very compassionate toward this mind that gets so unruly. And allow it to come back without recriminations and resume its path of following the breath. And every now and then, just tune in to where you feel the breath most prominently. If you're really paying attention to this body, you might sense a tingling in your hands or your body as a whole when you breathe in. There's a sense of anticipation with the in-breath. And with the out-breath, a sense of letting go. And you can think of the breath in that way. And think just how it affects your body. rapid breath follows tension, and tension results in a rapid breath, and you get into a spiral that becomes more and more tight. Watch that process and see if you can allow the tightness to unwind. You can follow this idea when you're sitting in traffic at a light. Do a quick scan. It's a moment like that. And see if you're tense, if you're gripping the steering wheel, if your neck and jaws are clenched, or are you feeling at ease, not bothered by what's going on outside, but very alert. But bring your attention, again allowing it to follow the breath as you sit here, breathing in and breathing out. And over a short period of time, you may find that your breath becomes longer and deeper. And if you follow that sensation of the breath, follow it over your body, you'll probably realize that your body is more relaxed than it was when you started. So take a few minutes and just sit with this breath. And if your mind wanders, just allow it to come back with kindness and gentleness and a sense of wonder at this mind that has so many permutations. Just follow. If you find that your mind has wandered away from the body, invite it to come back and do more exploring of this body that we call our home. And has, for the most part, served us well. And allow it to remain in harmony with the stillness that you may find in your body. And look at different parts of your body, your arms, for instance. Is there any sensation within your arm? What is the sensation of your hand on your thigh? Is it comfortable? Experiment with bringing the breath into that arm. You'll find it's very easy to do. Just breathe in and allow the breath to travel down from your shoulder to your hand. Then check in with the other arm and hand. Is that arm comfortable? Does it need to move? If it does, just allow it. But pay attention to the fact that you need to move your arm, and do it with deliberation. So it's not just a reflex. Check in with other parts of your body and see if there's any discomfort that you did not feel when you first sat down, that you're beginning to feel in your body. If there is discomfort, allow the breath to enter your nose and travel to that place of discomfort and soothe it. Continue to do that if you find a place of discomfort. Often, any discomfort while sitting in meditation is around your shoulder blades or your lower back. That may be an invitation to begin some strengthening to enable you to sit more comfortably. But that's not something that you need to be concerned with at this moment. Allow the breath to come in and bathe that area in its warmth and its comfort. And check in into other places, your neck, your temple, your jaw. And if there's no discomfort, simply then allow your mind to follow the breath in and out wherever you feel it most prominently. If your mind has begun to wander, allow it to come back into the body and follow the breath for 2 or 3 breaths. Pay attention to where it's most prominent. And allow one more time for the breath to bathe your entire body with healing, warm energy. And take a quick scan of whatever sensations you're feeling within the body. What emotions? You may be surprised. And if your eyes are closed, you'll want to open them in just a few moments. But before you do, think about the idea of opening your eyes and allowing the room to come into focus without thinking it into focus. Just pause and allow all the floor, the people, the table to just sharpen on its own. And take one last breath, a deep breath, and open your eyes.
My name is Mary. I think I know most of you. I am sometimes asked to help facilitate open Sangha when Dr. Lai is not around. There are 4 of us who do that. Nathan's one of them, and Judy, and Cecil is not around today, but we kind of take turns trying to keep open Sangha sanging. So, Dr. Lai is away for 2 weeks, and he has asked us to continue keeping the momentum going on this series on karma, the Buddha's teachings on karma. So far, we've had 4 sessions, and someone, I forget who it was, but someone who was sitting in that corner where you are now said, "This feels like drinking from a fire hydrant." So it did, but it was such good material. So I thought what we would do today is I would go over give a quick overview of the 4 sessions that we've had, kind of touch on the main points of what I think are the main points. You might feel differently. So I thought we'd start with that, and then we'd open it up for discussion, questions, comments. And I really like that part where you all talk, because, for me, it feels like it's applied Dharma, because people bring their life experiences, their how they live the Dharma, how it makes sense in their lives or not. And so to me, that's very, very interesting. And also, I want to make a disclaimer before we start, and that is I don't have the answers. We're all in this together, so I'm going to throw it out there and see where it lands and who picks what up. That's about how it goes. But before I start, I want to do a little housekeeping thing. And I'm going to pass around this little piece of paper. It has on it 3 pieces of information. The first one is our YouTube channel. The link for that, I think some people know how to reach it and some people don't. So if any of this looks interesting to you, take a picture of it with your camera. I was going to try and do a QR code, but it didn't work. So you know, it's just a URL there. So the first link is our YouTube channel. The second one is this particular playlist. On the YouTube channel, we have a playlist on the Buddha's teachings on karma. And so right now there are 4 videos on there. And then the last one is the book that we've been reading. It's called Karma and the End of Karma. It's a 2nd edition by Ajahn Sucitto, and there's a link to it. I think everybody here probably knows that this book is available for free download as a PDF. I think there was a time when they were able to give out printed copies as they were available, but I think right now it's just PDF. So I'm going to pass it this way, clockwise, as is our custom around here. So I'm going to start with giving a quick recap of the 4 sessions, and then I'm hoping to shut up and let other people talk. So if you bear with me, the first teaching on karma, Dr. Lai started with talking about common misconceptions about karma. Not going to go into that, but it was very interesting. The second one he talked about was the 4 noble truths as cause and effect. Like the first noble truth is an effect, the second is a cause, the third is an effect, and the fourth is a cause. And if you want to figure out how that works, if you missed the first class, you want to go back to it, that link is coming around. So, and then to me, I think the central idea, the most important idea for the first class is the Buddha's 3 knowledges. What did the Buddha learn? What are the 3 knowledges he acquired that night under the Bodhi tree, and how Siddhartha became Buddha? So there were 3 knowledges. Remember that? Yeah? Okay. Maybe I should go into that too. The first knowledge is the Buddha saw all his previous lifetimes. That he was such and such a person, he lived such and such a life, this way and that way, and then he passed away and he was reborn, and so on, all his previous lifetimes. And how is that significant? I mean, okay, so you can see all your previous lifetimes. How is that meaningful? It is meaningful because he saw the question of self and identity and how that is a fluid thing, that the self is not one thing. Now, intellectually, I know, I've heard that one before. But what most of us think about ourselves is, maybe in my next life, I'm going to be something else. Yeah, I sort of know that, right? But I don't live as if I know that. So, the reason for that is then we become very invested in our current self. I'm such and such a person, I like these things, I have these good qualities, maybe I have some not so positive qualities, but it's okay, I'm a pretty decent person. And we see it as between birth of this life and death of this life, and beyond that, we don't really know, right? So the idea, instead of seeing ourselves as a more or less solid, dependable thing, Dr. Lai suggested that we think of ourselves as a river that's constantly changing. And the idea of karma in the river is, the example he gave is, you throw trash here, and if you don't do anything about that trash, it's going to throw up here. Okay, so that's the first knowledge, how that applies, how that could apply in our lives. The second knowledge that the Buddha got the same night, was that he saw the arising and the passing away of all the beings. And it's an amazing, I mean, it's cosmological. So the first knowledge was personal, from personal to transpersonal, because from one person to a next person and the next person, but it's the same person, right? The second knowledge is cosmological, that he saw every being, how they are born, how they lived, how they died, and how they were reborn. And why is that significant? That is significant because that was the knowledge that enabled him to see and then to teach us to see karma, cause and effect. That the living, the birth, living and passing away and reborn, and being reborn is not haphazard, it's not random. It has to do with the actions, the causes and effects, how that takes shape. It's not like a stone's throw, whatever it hits, that's what you get. It's not that way at all. So it talks about rebirth is determined by karma, vipaka. Vipaka is effect. Actions leave imprints on the doer's mind, giving rise to habitual propensity. Now we think of our actions affect other people, right? But they also affect us because whatever we do.
Again?
But that
Action gives rise to the doer's mind. Can you say that?
Yeah, actions leave imprints in the doer's mind. We don't think of that, but when we act, we also leave an imprint. We think of our actions as affecting other people, which they do. But we don't think that our actions also affect us. And there's this line in the book that says, we create karma and karma creates us. I think that was a very powerful line. Might be the only line I remember, but I thought, okay. So our actions leave imprints in our minds, and when you have a lot of these imprints, they create this very powerful tendency called habitual propensity. And we'll come across a lot of these ideas later. These are very central ideas that will arise again and again in our series. So the third knowledge is the Buddha saw things as they are and things as they appear to be, both. Now we see things as they appear to be and we think this is reality, but it's not. And we don't, so what is reality? We don't really know. Buddhas know. They see things as they are, truly are. We see things as they appear to be. And the disconnect between what reality really is, the real deal, versus what we think the deal is, and the disconnect is a cause for suffering. So we'll come across that again too. So the third knowledge has to do with the ending of karma, how Buddhas experience karma. Totally different from the way we experience it. They are beyond fear of the result of karma. There's this saying, I don't think it was in the book, but it's like human beings, we are afraid of the results of karma. And bodhisattvas are afraid of the causes of karma, because if you don't cause it, there will be no results. Right? So we are like, oh my God, I hope it doesn't happen to me. But how to make it not happen to you is not create the cause in the first place, right? But we don't know how to do that. That is something that we haven't figured out to do. So, couple of other things. We are fundamentally, innately good. And then there is this important thing. Intention is the main determinant of whether an action will have bright or dark results. Bright actions create bright results. Dark actions create dark results. So that's the first class. I'm going too slowly, I'm talking too much. So the second class, Dr. Lai started with the Four Noble Rumors. I think some of you remember that. The Buddha was a healer, not a philosopher. So people would come and try to challenge him to debate philosophy, important ideas of the time. And he wasn't really interested, and he wouldn't answer them. And his disciples would be frustrated and say, why didn't you answer him? And the Buddha would say, that wasn't what he was really interested in. That was not relevant. But any time that somebody who was suffering came to the Buddha, he would help them. He would teach them. He would show them. But later on, after the Buddha's time, Buddhists feel like we have to show that we've got the philosophy too. We can debate, we can argue, and we can win. And that's a good thing, because Buddhists need, this kind of intellectual strength is one of the reasons Buddhism has survived throughout cultures. It's not like, okay, we give up, walk all over us. It's not like that at all. So anyway, then he talked about the aspects of the mind, manas, which is the intellect, the objective part of the mind, and chitta, which is the heart, the subjective part of the mind, and devotional practices which bridge the two. I think we come across that again, I think maybe in the fourth class. Fourth, I think. So there are, at this point, suffering doesn't just turn up. We have habituated mostly habits of suffering. And that's where suffering turns up, because we've created them. They don't just happen randomly. Then there are 4 types of karma: dark, heavy, burdensome, bright, light, and freeing, mixed, which is hard for us to see, and liberating karma, which is bright. But the difference between the liberating karma and the bright light karma is liberating karma is bright and directed to the goal of becoming free of the 3 poisons. Quick detour, what are the 3 poisons? Come on, y'all know this. Don't make me talk all the time.
Ignorance, attachment, and aversion.
Yay! All right, Meg. Okay. So intention determines the quality of the actions of body, speech, and mind. But intention is not always easy to see. It's not always very clear, because we are very good at deceiving ourselves. We are very good at spinning all kinds of truths to ourselves. And sometimes, our habit patterns cover up our innate goodness. We talk about, in this system, we're not fallen. We're not evil. We're not depraved. We are innately good, but our habitual propensities, our habitual actions and habits have obscured our innately good nature. So when we talk about intention, sometimes intention is not as clear as we think it is. So the goal of Buddhist meditation is to help us develop the skills to catch ourselves when we go down our habitual circuit that lead to suffering. To kind of train ourselves to see clearly and not be dragged around by our habitual patterns. So karma comes into play when the mind comes into contact with objects and sense experiences. And this is kind of when I first encountered it, it's kind of complicated. I think it's still complicated. And what does that mean? When the mind encounters something, and usually the mind encounters things through the 5 senses in the British system. In the Buddhist system, there are 6 senses. It's the 5 senses that we think of, plus the mind, the intellect. So contact means when the eyes see something, when the eyes encounter something, that's contact. Okay? When the ear encounters a sound, when the nose smells something, when you taste something. That's a contact. And the thing about contact is the first thing as soon as the senses encounter something is something called formation arises. No, I'm sorry, feeling. Feeling arises. And this feeling is not like, oh, I feel anger, I feel love. That's feeling, but that happens later. The first thing that happens after we see something or smell something is 3 responses arise: like, dislike, or don't care. And these 3 are manifestations of the 3 poisons. Like is what? Attachment. Okay. Dislike is aversion, and
Ignorance is, I don't care.
it's like we don't care is ignorance or confusion. Okay. So let's say the 5 senses and thoughts. Okay. Diversity of karma is the next thing. Karma experience in the 6 realms of Buddhist cosmology. So that's the karma as experienced by the gods, as experienced by the demigods, human beings, animals, hungry ghosts, and hell beings. So that's the diversity of karma as experienced by beings in the 6 realms. Okay, the 3 results of karma. So the results could arise here and now, or they could arise later in this lifetime, or they could arise in a future lifetime. So there are 3 possible results. And then there's a question of how to practice. Practice shouldn't feel like really tight and tense. It should feel spacious and open. And then taking the teachings into your experience. So the teachings are not so much for academic, intellectual gathering and hoarding of knowledge. It's about taking it into our lives, into our experience. So that's the first 2 classes. Can we stop and talk about this before so I don't have to talk anymore?
Yes. That'd be good.
Yeah, that'd be good. Okay. Somebody say something.
I hadn't heard before that, okay, so, when your mind comes, one of your senses comes in contact with something, that there's a reaction to it, it's either like or dislike or
Neutral.
neutral.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard the association that neutral was ignorance before, and that's kind of confusing to me, because then it means like, to me it seems like, all right, you've got 3 choices when your mind comes into contact with some kind of...
But it's pre-choice, right? It's
Right.
your
Yeah.
natural, just how you experience it.
Right? And it seems like we're saying that each of those 3 is not good.
I think that is the basis then for the arising of your, immediately you experience an apple, and then on that basis, and then on that basis, want, oh, give me the apple. Rather than, because I'm not sure, doctrinally, if we would say, I think a Buddha does experience these feeling tones in contact with experiences.
I think feelings arise pre-cognition, before we even know what it is. We like, dislike, or
You haven't
don't care.
labeled it as
Yeah.
apple.
So for example, you don't even know it's an apple. I think it's kind of hard for me to give an example with sight, but with smell, it's, sometimes you smell something and I've caught myself doing this many times. Oh, I smell something. Smells good. Or it smells like food. Or it smells like garbage. Or it smells like whatever it is. I don't even know what it is, but I know it smells good or it doesn't smell good.
Yeah, there's what's that?
What's that? Yeah. And I think this is an example of how our habitual propensities, what causes us to like something or dislike something? when we don't even know what it is yet. It's our habitual propensities. There's something, because we're not blank slates, that we have already all these circuits that are established in us. And not all of them are positive.
And I don't know if it's necessarily they're all bad.
Yeah.
This book seems very mechanistic, just about understanding the mechanisms of experience. And I think there's an interesting analog to the three poisons, but smelling French fries and thinking, oh, that smells good, is not the same amount of negative karma as eating French fries until I'm so full I'm sick. You know what I mean? There's a difference between, even though there's an analogy to the three poisons, I don't know if they're identical to the three poisons per se.
My assumption and the way that I understand it is that the reason it's aligned with ignorance is because a Buddha would be perfectly aware of any sense contact that's happening, and it wouldn't be filtering out specific things in preference of attachments and aversions. And so the things that get filtered out that you're like, I don't care, and you're doing it on an automatic basis, a Buddha would just be perfectly aware of that thing. And so there's ignorance that's automatically filtering those out. That's my assumption in the way that I look at it.
I think that connects really nicely with another point that was discussed, which is about how our intention is what colors our awareness. Right? So going at life with a certain intention, we become ignorant of a host of things based on whatever our intention is. And I can't remember exactly, maybe someone remembers better the quote from the book of that.
Intention is karma. And karma is intention, I tell you.
It does say intention is karma.
Yeah.
Or
Is that it?
intention drives attention.
Oh,
Yeah.
that one. That is complicated.
Uh,
The circular thing.
uh,
I think that happens in like the third or fourth class.
maybe.
Fourth one is more clearly defined. So this is what I've got. Don't know whether it makes sense or not. So there's this cycle. Your attention, it comes under the section of the importance of paying attention. So attention affects actions. Actions create habits and our programming. And then that affects intentions, and then intentions affect attention. So attention, action, habit, intention, act, attention. It's a circle, and they reinforce one another.
It's like when you like a person or a place, you can just constantly notice things that you like about it. And your attention is driven by that.
It's also, if you are, as a result of habit, if you are sort of prepared to see the negative in someone, it doesn't matter what's coming out of that person, you're gonna see the negative. So the intention leads to action. Action comes around and creates a feeling, a sense, which then reinforces this intention, and you go round and round and round. And it's hard to get out of it if you are not aware of where all this starts and where it has led and what has led you to be in that place. And it's about anything. It's not just seeing negativity. It's, a thief is inclined to steal. Well, why? They weren't born to steal. So it's this process that sort of leads into negative behavior that we don't even understand why. Most of the time.
And it also ties into this
this deeply rooted sense of self and and how that can be harmful. Because if we believe ourselves to be a certain way or to be a certain thing, then it's much harder for us to see those habits and those processes that drive our attention, or that drive our intention, which drives our attention and our action, as malleable, as something that we can change and evolve with. Because it's just like, oh, I'm just a negative person, or oh, I'm just this, I am this. It's like you're putting yourself in a box of existence when and becoming attached to that version of you or that self, when it's really noticing the pattern, you can step out of the pattern.
A good example of the phenomenon is someone who feels like he or she is always left out. We all know people like that. And that gets reinforced because they act in such a way often that nobody wants to be around them. And so you just create, but it all starts with this very subtle perception. And then we run with it, with whatever program we've got running.
It's like self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, absolutely, same thing.
What about the sensation of extreme hunger? I mean, that's a sensation, and it's obviously, it's not something that we, want, so we have an aversion to it, but it happens. So, I know the Buddha, in the process of becoming enlightened, became very, he didn't eat for, months, maybe years, but a grain of rice. So he really felt what extreme hunger is. And there's a lot of people on the planet, today that are experiencing extreme hunger, and it's causing a great deal of suffering. But how do you, as a Buddhist, what do you do?
I don't think this is the vein we're trying to go down is to end suffering for yourself. So imposing something that is going to create a lot of suffering for yourself kind of goes against what you're supposed to be doing. It's a natural thing to be hungry. It's a natural thing to be averse to it, but it shouldn't be something that you then create negative karma from it. Like when you're hungry, you're then angry. When you're hungry, you're then irritable and you yell at the people around you. Whereas it should be looked at, seen, and then action should be taken to step around it. You're hungry, okay, let's see if we can get some food, see what we can do, as opposed to reacting to it. And then you're automatically reinforcing the attention, intention, action, and then you're in the loop. But yeah, if someone's hungry, feed them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that example because it is easy to take these and go in directions that I think can be kind of confusing or misleading almost. And I felt that as well. I do feel like though that in reading through the book, Ajahn Suchito does a great job of, again, maybe it's because I'm an engineer and I think about things very mechanistically, but it's very logical and there's no judgment with it. It's just this is how things are. Oh, and it's kind of very typical when you're hungry to get irritable. You're not bad for that. Just notice. And in the act of noticing and understanding these mechanisms, you can interrupt the extra suffering that is not necessary. So I really like that example. Hangry. I don't need to be.
We've all seen it.
Yeah, I've been plenty. Yeah.
So I think the idea that karma comes into play when contact is made. Before we even we think that, well, karma is action, but, already before we even act, we're already reacting to the senses, whether we like, dislike. And when we do that, we are kind of reinforcing, consolidating our habitual tendencies, like blue cheese. Some people like blue cheese, some people don't like blue cheese. It's not the problem with the blue cheese. Blue cheese is blue cheese, right? But why is it that I like blue cheese and my husband didn't? It's like, where'd that come from? He didn't like mayonnaise. Anything with mayonnaise is like, But for me, I'm like, yeah, I like mayonnaise in almost everything, sandwiches, casseroles, whatever. And the strange thing is, he grew up in a mayonnaise eating culture and I didn't. And I don't know where that came from. And there's a lot of examples like that, And it's always, I've always wondered about that, what makes some people like some things and some people not like the same thing. I don't know.
I'm just skimming through the book here, and a relevant example is he talks about, well, even if you do know the reasons of like, okay, a dog bit me when I was 4, and so I have this aversion to dogs, it becomes this like sensitive spot. I love this framing because it's very like relatable. It's like we all have the little things in life that we're sensitive to. Yeah, but with skillful attention, you can be attentive to the actual dog in front of you, despite these sensitivities of like, is it growling and gnashing its teeth at me, or is it just sniffing around, right? And like, I think that the skillful attention is it motivates the training of that skillful attention so that we can be particularly careful around these sensitive spots. And that's something I've taken away from this. And, my sensitive spots and moving through the world of like, what are the things that I know kind of get me, and to be extra attentive around those things so that I can accurately assess. Because sometimes if it's a growling dog, and you need to, there's action that you need to take, but oftentimes it's just sniffing around.
And I don't think the answer is like you have to change that precognitive response. Like, you don't have to start liking blue cheese or like feel or like stop disliking it even.
You just notice.
Like, you just need to notice. Yeah, you just need to notice the tone that your mind associates with the stimulus and notice what the next step in the process is that it generally triggers, and notice those patterns about yourself so that you can be reflective on which ones cause suffering and which ones don't, and interrupt the ones that do, ideally. But that's like the next step.
When the things are really scary and can cause, potentially, in circumstances, either have in your past caused harm to you,
Right.
or potentially could, then it's harder.
Right. They're survival instincts.
But like,
Sometimes.
I'll just give one, like, I personally have had like probably an aversion to or a immediate fear and avoidance of like homeless people, because I don't know, they're weird or scary or something. But as I recognize that, then I can know, yes, that I have had that, and then think about the ways that I can be aware that I'm going to have that, and then try to make sure that even though that I'm experiencing that in my mind, that my outward actions don't
cause harm to
Don't cause
them.
harm and don't like perpetuate that
Mhm.
and let it be like
So
an opportunity to not reinforce it.
the way the book describes that is that you have basically like trauma at some point, right? You have trauma, and so you have the manas, which is like the mental aspect of your mind, looks at the trauma and immediately has a memory of something or a traumatic event or something that then causes the chitta, which is the communication with your heart, to then clench or close, or your body closes in, or you have a somatic response to it. And so what the book describes is then at that point it's recognizing the process you're in and breathing and releasing and just trying to talk to your 2-year-old. You know, as Judy graciously mentioned earlier, you talk to your 2-year-old and you let it know it's going to be okay, and you experience the event that chitta is pulling back from memory. So it's pulling back a somatic response that is stored in your memory, and so you have to experience it, and you have to tell it, you know, we'll be okay. You watch it and you let it pass, and you do that enough times until the chitta doesn't do that anymore. Until it is able to let go of those specific memories and know, like, okay, like these events don't necessarily mean this thing that is called up in memory.
It's sort of a desensitizing process, but you're not necessarily in the presence of the trauma or a homeless person, except maybe from afar. You know, it's really a getting used to the idea that there's no harm.
Because you don't want to be, because people that you're walking past, they can feel what you're feeling, even if they don't even know that they are, but in some ways they can feel what you're feeling through the way the bodies talk to each other without even your being aware of it. And if you can stop that before it goes to where your body expression is relaying it to another human, then you might be able to break something that is going to affect that other person, right?
Nobody said it was easy.
I think one of the very positive things about why we're learning all this, why we coming to these classes and learning it, is not to forget that we can rewire ourselves, reprogram ourselves. We're not stuck. That's the important thing to keep in mind. That to recognize these problems, you know, is a start. Then what are we going to do about that? And I think this tradition is always, to me, a very optimistic and a very positive way of looking at the world. I like to tell my vegetarian story. I think most of you have heard it before, right? Most of you have. Anybody haven't heard my vegetarian story?
I don't think I have.
Okay, I'll tell it quickly. So I used to work at Warren Wilson. I'm retired now. And when I was at Warren Wilson, we used to have these search committees, and I ended up on a lot of these search committees because I'm such a nerd. I do all my homework, I read the files, I do this, I do that. So anyway, we were interviewing for this position, and the search is kind of complicated. You know, Warren Wilson, we don't do anything simple. So what we did was, a group of us were standing around, you know, waiting. The candidate was there, and we were waiting for other members of the search committee to show up. And so we were talking, oh, do you have any dietary restrictions? Where shall we go for lunch? Blah, blah, blah. And this one candidate said, I'm a part-time vegetarian. And so we all laughed, I laughed too, you know, because, you know, you can't be a vegetarian. You're either a vegetarian or you're not. That's what we commonly think, you know. But I think you can be a part-time vegetarian. Of course you can. most of us think, well, you're either a nice person or you're not a nice person. Most of us are somewhere in between, right? So even though I'm not a vegetarian, and I think some people are and some people are not, but we can all work towards more vegetables and less meat, right? So it's a tradition that I think encourages us to think about what we can do. Now I'm not a vegetarian. Of course, it's better to be a full-time vegetarian than a part-time vegetarian, but I think all of us can eat a little lower on the food chain, and that's totally doable. It doesn't have to be a big deal, It can be, okay, some people do meatless Mondays, some people do, vegetarians on Friday, some people give up meat for Lent, and there's various ways that you can do things that are meaningful. And I'm going to tell one more story and then I think we have to go. Dr. Lai tells a story about one time the Dalai Lama was speaking to a big group of Tibetans, big group gathering. And then he was talking about the 5 lay vows, and he got to the point, one of the lay vows is no intoxicants, no drugs or drinking or anything like that. And he looked up at the crowd and all these Tibetan faces, and it's a drinking culture. So he wasn't to tell them, no drinking. He said, okay, drink less. All of you, less, okay? All, less. So it's a tradition that is very, I think, humane. It doesn't say, oh, you drink, you're going to hell, It says, okay, you can't quit drinking, drink less. You can't give up meat, well, eat more beans and less meat, okay? So you start where you are and you work towards where you need to be, or where you want to be, or where you can be. And I think that is a very empowering way, to me, a very empowering way of looking at the world, because I don't want to give up meat. So I don't care. I'm just going to go crazy, No, you don't want to give up meat? Okay, well, eat less of it. Don't buy meat every time you go to the store. Or buy a smaller piece. Or, have a day or 2 a week or a month where you just give that up. Okay. So I have to tell that story again because I love it so much. Because to me, this is how we can practice Dharma. It doesn't have to be, oh, I practice Dharma. It's a big deal, I think we can all do this, Buddhist or not, So I feel like, to me, that is one of the big things that's very attractive and very appealing about this tradition. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm glad you're here. Okay, I'm sorry to talk so much, but I think it's time. I think we're past time. So let's take a minute to kind of collect ourselves and be glad that we were here and dedicated to, and may our time here yield good vipaka and for ourselves and for others. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Zoom people. I was going to say over there. Thank you, Zoom people, for joining us. Bye. Good night.
It's like a puppet.
Does it make sense for me to wave at them, even though I should wave over there?
Yeah, you should wave.
Wave over there, everybody.
I wonder who Kenna is. Joining us from Nova Scotia. But I wonder who Kenna is.
Yeah, right,
She's joining us from, what's it? Gung Ho Abby.
Stop.
Thank you for